How about one more time for Lew? Good evening, everybody. I'm Gary Vaynerchuk. This is a humongous honor for me because I've had the luxury of knowing Lew and his amazing family for quite some time at this point, and I just think he has a lot of wisdom to share. I think he has incredible stories, and I was very excited to hear that he was writing this book, and then even more humbled to be asked to do this today, so thank you for that, sir. Of course. So I think where I want to start first is actually the beginning. Obviously, we got to see that beautiful video, but when you think about the topics you touch on in Bagman, both as a person and the organization, you know, I think all of us in this room are wildly affected by our youth. What do you want everybody to know about those early days, or how do you at this point in your life see those early days shaping who you became as a operator and as a human?
Could you ask the question again?
I can. What do you think, when you think about your childhood in the Bronx, what do you think are the instrumental moments, the mother-father dynamic, what was happening outside, nature, nurture? How do you know, what parts of your childhood do you think shaped the concepts that drove you as an operator and as a human?
I was a late talker, and so most people did not understand me when I spoke until I was about 5 years old. My mother and father were always focused on giving me the opportunity to live the American dream. While they were born here, their parents had come shortly before their birth, so in many ways they were an immigrant family. And my mother took me to the library to help me learn how to read. And one pivotal moment was when I was in the 9th grade, and my mother and I went to see the guidance counselor, Mr. Schmutter, and in a very small office. I remember it vividly. We sat in 2 chairs like this. He was sitting up behind the desk, and he said to my mother that I should go to a trade school, and he thought printing was the profession of the future.
Well, he was a genius, you know.
And the long and short of it is my mother got up and said, "Louis, we're out of here. My son's going to college." I hung back because he was authority, and there's my mother leaving, but I sheepishly followed her, and I went to college. So they had a real profound impact.
What happens then? What, you know, you go through that journey, what were you thinking about in college?
I came of age in the 60s, and I'm not sure how it developed, but I had a very strong sense of justice and belief in possibilities, and I got involved in student government, anti-war movement at the Vietnam War, and by my senior year I actually became student body president, so somehow leadership qualities started to emerge, and I was fortunate as a senior to have a professor who was responsible for the student council, and she believed in group dynamics, sensitivity training, precursors to what people do. And I went away for 2 weeks and to a national training labs in Bethel, Maine, and I came back feeling I really needed to strengthen my collaborative skills. I needed to listen better. That there was a lot that I could learn.
Was that a massive moment for you, those 2 weeks in Maine?
I'm sorry?
Was that a very big moment for you, those
Yes,
2 weeks in Maine? Did it make you self-aware of things you hadn't seen before?
Well, it was so significant when I went back. I had to drive to the Catskills, where I was head waiter of a small hotel, and I told my waiters that we were going to sit in a circle and we were going to talk about
Our
what we
feelings.
needed to do to be successful. They thought I was out of my mind. And that was the beginning. But I felt early on that I had an affinity for purpose, causes, and I found myself in city government and had a great mentor, the late Herb Rosenzweig, and who had been an assistant secretary of defense during the McNamara years. And I felt I was in boot camp when I first went to work for him. I thought I wasn't going to survive 3 months. Once I passed that hurdle, we wound up becoming best friends. And when Bobby and I got married, he was my best man. And he really was incisive. He was able to cut to the essence on a lot of things. And he actually supported me, and I wound up at one point becoming head of daycare and Head Start for the city of New York, which I did for about 3.5 years.
If I may, just because I'm interested, going back a little bit in that story, those first 3 months that you were concerned you weren't going to make it.
Yes.
Was he just that tough? Like what clicked down into that just for a second? What was happening in those first couple days working for him?
Well, basically, I was told by his staff that he was impossible to work with. He had very high standards, and he wouldn't accept mediocrity. So always having a fear of failure, I dug in and I did my very, very best to be as prepared as possible.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you feel that his style rubbed off on the way you managed later in your career?
Some aspects of it. When we have mentors, we have to pick and choose what qualities do we think we would like to emulate. And he was very acerbic, and most people did not get along with him, but he was brilliant. And over time, when we went to the mayor's office, I would accompany him, and I would lead presentations. And or if he was speaking, I would hit him under the table to calm down if he thought they weren't smart enough.
All right, so now you're in government here in the city. What is the transition moment in your career that gets you out of that world?
Well, Ed Koch passed me over for a position that I really coveted, where I could influence civil service contracts and improve efficiencies in government. So I thought.
And so, just to interrupt, I apologize. Who did Ed choose?
I'm sorry?
Who did Ed choose?
No, Ed Koch.
No, I'm aware. Who did Mayor Koch choose instead of you? This is a profound mistake by the legendary Ed Koch. I'm just curious for my own knowledge.
He passed me over for this job, and I decided I needed to do something else. And he passed me over because he said I was too principled. And I'm not exactly sure what he meant, but I thought what he meant was if I disagreed with him and I thought the issue was important, I would speak truth to power.
So what happened? How did the journey of deciding to get out of that game start? What were you looking at? What was in consideration?
I wasn't looking at all, but I knew I needed to find something else. I could have gone to McKinsey or major consulting companies, but I was really looking to do something that could combine strategy and execution, because in daycare, I had to execute the new programs we put into place, and I find a lot of fulfillment in getting things done. So it was serendipitous. I shared a taxi with a professor at Columbia where I guest lectured, and he said, "What do you do for an encore?" And I said, I'm not sure. And he said he had a childhood friend who was looking for a protege. He ran a pocketbook company, a small handbag company, $6 million in sales. And he was looking for someone with good values and no experience in bags or in the garment center. And I thought to myself, well, I think I have good values and I certainly have no experience. And 4 interviews later, I went to work for Coach.
After the first interview, I don't know if you recall, but did that spark I mean, that's super left field, Lew. That's a super left field move for you to go from where you're going to coach. Did the first interview intrigue you right away, or did it take you time to get excited, or did you get excited about the opportunity immediately?
It actually grew on me. My first interview was held in the founder's office. At the time, we had 40,000 square feet on West 34th Street building. You visited many a time to meet with me. And 20,000 feet was a factory, and the other 20,000 feet, about 12,000 feet was a warehouse, and we had a showroom and some offices. So when I met with Miles, I also met with his wife, Lillian, and we had a good conversation. He couldn't understand, though, what I did in city government. He just didn't understand. So I invited him to my offices at daycare, and down at 240 Church Street. He came with his wife, Lillian, and I showed him my list. I had a daily list, a weekly list, a monthly list, and I checked things off. And what we said was that to my team that he was a philanthropist and he was going to perhaps provide some support for daycare. That was my second interview. I almost never went to my third interview because I was really busy, and I called Bobby, who said, "Get your butt down there, and you can decide later whether you want to take the job or not." And by the third interview, I had done a lot of homework, and I was intrigued. So after the fourth interview, he gave me an offer.
And you took it, obviously.
I took the offer, of course. He offered me $800 a week, which was my pay in city government, and I was very pleased to do it.
The first year, what surprised you? What intoxicated you? How did the working relationship with him go?
Well, my very first project was putting in air conditioning for the factory. So I had to learn.
Kids, you need to hear this out here. Everybody wants to be a vice president in the first week these days.
Well, what I didn't share with you, though, I did a lot of homework before I joined Coach, and I came into Coach with a belief that the product itself, which consumers loved, under the right tutelage, with storytelling, evolution, could one day be a strong brand, even though we were just in the Northeast. I started a mail order business, which the founder actually encouraged me to do. And
what year was that? Do you remember?
1980. And then a year later, we opened our first store. And the reality is, we might not be sitting here today if the owner, Miles, got to open the location he wanted to, which was across from Symphony Hall on Carnegie Hall, on 57th Street. I went scouting for a location, and there was a small location. One side was a chicken store, and the other side was basically a place where you buy newspapers, but it was directly across from Carnegie Hall. The alternative location, which was on Madison Avenue and 65th Street, I thought might be preferable. And
You're a genius.
I convinced Lillian to break the deadlock, and we opened on Madison Avenue, and it was on 450 square feet, 40 by 11. We did about 1.1 million in the first 12 months. Average bag might have been $55, but I knew something was special when we had lines to the corner outside. And I found myself telling my staff, we need to get water, give candy to the people. And I started to walk the line and ask people why they were there. I didn't, as most people here who know me or started the book, I didn't know anything, obviously, about fashion. So I focused on the consumer. And I will say, Coach still focuses under Todd Kahn's leadership with Stewart on the consumer.
Do you think your service element and how you thought about servicing the citizens of this great city, it was very natural for you to think about the
Yes.
consumer because of your past?
Exactly. I really felt mission-driven when I was in daycare and Head Start. I felt a real responsibility to provide superior service and a slot for every eligible kid in daycare or Head Start. And they were my clients. They were my customers. And so when I went to coach, it was natural for me to think that my customer was who I worked for. And if I did a good job serving them, respecting them, giving them what they wanted, they would continue to embrace the brand.
When that store opens, the lines were instant?
I'm sorry?
When that store opened in Madison, were the lines instant? It was a hit right away?
No. I mean, let me say no and yes.
Okay.
We opened in October, and when we opened at 10 o'clock in the morning. I remember wondering if anyone would come to the store the first day, and there were about 8 people online. I was very surprised. So I spoke to the 8 people, and they loved Coach. And on the weekend,
Where, I'm sorry to interrupt, where would they buy Coach prior to this?
only wholesale.
Only wholesale.
So-
So it sold in other department stores.
Specialty stores were much bigger than today. We were basically a Northeast brand. We covered the quadrant, Boston to Washington to Chicago, Minneapolis. That was where we sold products. But by early December on weekends when the shopping season came, we had lines out the door. And the week before Christmas, it was down to the corner, 75 or 100 people. It blew us away.
Let me jump to today. When you think about this incredible book, when you were writing it, what did you want the audience, the consumer? You know, obviously your whole career has been serving. You know, I think many authors take many different directions with a book, but I think your career and your legacy, it's very clear to me at least, maybe I have the luxury of having a little context, that there were definitely things running through your mind that when you wrote this that you wanted them to get value out of. What are the top things you wanted to get across?
Well, my children, Tamara led, Sam and Alana, also all wanted me to tell an authentic story, that life is not just a bowl of cherries. And that meant that I would discuss my fear of failure, mental health, and the several depressive episodes I had and what I did to to avoid going deeper and to avoid them in the future. And it's something my family lived through, and while I shared it limitedly with a handful of friends, by the time I left Coach, I felt very open about talking with founders, senior leadership teams, people in transition, that to basically say, listen to your body. If you're feeling fatigued or feeling you're losing your mojo, or you're feeling that you're not being successful or you're lacking energy, you really need to pause and take stock. And you also need balance, and clearly exercise, meditation, therapy, sometimes meds, all can help. And I encourage young people to find companies that respect mental health as an illness.
Let's clap that up. It's important. What other themes did you want to make sure? Obviously, that's no question the biggest thing that you delivered here. On a less important level, from a business standpoint, a marketing standpoint, building long-lasting legacy brands, the science and the art. What other themes were you passionate to get out in this book?
Well, I will say I loved the Coach brand from the very first days I worked there, and it's not someone I say in my book. It's like, when did you fall in love with Coach? It's like asking someone, when did you fall in love with your wife? It's, it sort of happens, and I look to bring in people to work with me who felt a sense of purpose, who were looking to do something that had meaning. We built a very strong culture focused on learning, curiosity. We introduced the concept of magic and logic, which thrives and lives through every day in Coach. And when we talk about magic, we talk about belief in possibilities. You need to think that something can be. If you don't, there's no way to get to the other side. You also need imagination to see what it might look like on the other side, immersive curiosity, instinct, and the logic, of course, comes from using analytics, collaboration, the right mindset of focusing on the greater good, not just your silo. And we built a culture that encouraged people to be curious, and over time, the brand evolved. And I'm proud to say that in recent years, under Todd and Stuart Vivas, the brand has experienced an incredible renaissance, and it's stronger and bigger than ever. And that, to me, is a brand that has lived in the hearts and minds of consumers, of women and men, for 7 or 8 decades. So it's exciting. And I wanted to tell the Coach story for anyone who wanted to understand management, values, leadership, and also building an iconic brand. I will say that the Coach leadership team, once I said I was writing a team and my memoirs, they encouraged me to do this, and they're here in large numbers, existing and retired and former Coach employees. Welcome.
Yeah, let's clap it up for that. You touched on something interesting in these last two. I'm going to ask you what I think is a very challenging question for a lot of leaders in this room. In a world where you want to uphold a culture, passion, curiosity, excellence, and then prior to that, you encourage people to work in organizations that support mental health. You start going into a place of supporting empathy and compassion and sympathy. How do you make that decision?
How do you
make the decision at the highest levels when you've deployed enough compassion or empathy and you've got to hold up the cultural standard you're looking to achieve? How much did you struggle or not struggle with having to fire people that didn't live to the culture while you were trying to support things? This is a very challenging question for a lot of us. I think you could bring some wisdom.
No, well, when the founder sold the business to Sarah Lee, I realized that I needed to change the culture from a paternalistic family business to what I coined back then, a performance family, where everyone, starting with me, would understand that we were going to set goals, we would measure ourselves against those goals, and if people performed, there would be a lot of opportunity, and if they did not perform, we would try to help them perform. And over time, it became part of our DNA. We also, from the mid '80s, I started to bring in executive coaches, and in order to help onboard people, to help people refine their collaboration skills. However, even before people joined us, we developed interviewing techniques. And while you can't interview for empathy, you can get a sense through a set of questions you might ask whether people are empathic. And we built a learning environment that thrived, and I'm proud to say most people who have worked at Coach who left for whatever set of reasons talk about that being their best experience.
When the founder sold the company, were you excited about that transaction? Was that good for you? Was that a challenge? What was different about it?
I was thrilled because
How many years into you being a coach did that?
I was a coach for about 5 years, and I approached the founder in early 1984. So I started in 79. I had built 2 divisions which were bigger than the wholesale business was when we started.
Catalog retail?
Yeah, so the wholesale business was 6. It grew to about 10. And the businesses I started, catalog and stores, was 12 or 13. And the founder spent a good portion of his time in Hudson, New York, making goat cheese.
How was the cheese?
Yes, cheese.
No, I'm aware. How was it? I'm sure you got some of it. Was
Yes.
it good?
Very good cheese.
Very good cheese.
And that's another story. But he only came to the office 2 or 3 days a week. And the short story is I said to him that I thought that I should have some equity. And he said, well, my old guys, the other 3 peers of mine, would also get equity. I said, great, they deserve it too. And then I became their representative. And 3 months later, when he did not say anything about what was going on, I went to see him, and he said to me, Lew, I do not want you looking at my T&E. I decided to sell the business, and I would like you to stay on, and even though you're not ready to be CEO, I'm going to say you are so that I could leave the day of the sale, and which he did. And I went on with Irene Miller, who actually joined our board about 15 years later to find the right parent, and we found a conglomerate, Sara Lee, based in Chicago and North Carolina.
And how did they give you unlimited freedom to build the brand as you wanted? Were they really in it? How did it go?
No, we chose them because they had 100 different businesses, and we knew, and they were in another city, and they knew nothing about bags and accessories. And I knew that.
And kids, no internet back then. Another city really meant far away.
So, and what I liked about them, besides knowing that I would have freedom, is that they would also, they also focused on analytics and metrics because they were a public company, and even though we were originally a very small division at $25 million and rose to $500 million over the time we were with them, every month we had to do zero-based budgeting.
Wow.
And I admired and appreciated that.
It taught you that discipline, or you already came with that discipline in your mind?
Well, innately, I had that discipline, but it's really nice when you can go to a company and they already have the scorecards, and all you need to do is adapt them to your business. So it was really easy on integrating within Sara Lee, and which was the case for the first many years.
And you go into that world in the mid-'80s. Here we are all these years later, and this legacy iconic brand exists. If I take you to those first years of Sara Lee in that first 5-year window, are there any watershed moments that you look back on that were instrumental to get us here all together, or even within that first decade? What were the 1 or 2 decisions you made?
Well, I remember vividly being told that I must open in J.C. Penney's. And the reason I was told I must open in J.C. Penney's was that Hanes was going to get a big shop, and there was many millions of dollars in sales, and I said that I would not do this, and then I wound up speaking with the president, and I said, I can't do this. It's not good for the brand. Not the president of Sara Lee, not the CEO. Fortunately, the CEO always gave me protection, a man with high character, belief. And I said, sorry, I wish I could. And the president asked me to leave his office. Very upset.
And you did that because you felt that it would hurt the brand equity,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Talk about that. Talk about a decision where you're thinking about what does that association mean for this logo and brand versus the short-term economics?
Well, when you have selective distribution and you're targeting the top 20 or 30% of U.S. households, and at JCPenney, they were not shopping for branded handbags, or if they were house brands, mass brands. The consumer wasn't there, and JCPenney would also have adjacencies next to Macy's and Nordstrom's and other places where we were, and they wouldn't be happy with us selling the product there. And we needed to be careful about where we distributed. Meanwhile, we were very rapidly growing our own stores, and I didn't want to have added pressures from department stores. They're saying not only opening your own stores, you're going down market.
Of course. Talk to me about, just educate everybody on the concept of logic and magic, and then I have a couple questions.
I do believe there's magic in logic and there's logic in magic. They're not mutually exclusive. You need to weigh. It's not a recipe with specific ingredients. You put it together, and you have a 360 view of everything: the product, the consumer, the brand, and the marketplace. And you create a culture, an environment where the senior leadership team, all the way, starting with the senior leadership team, all the way down to senior store people, understand the importance of giving consumers what they want, when they want it, in an image-enhancing way.
I want to set up a question, but I'm going to do it this way. The revenue of the business, as you said, when you started, was $6 billion.
Yes.
When you left,
$5 billion.
one more time slowly for the kids in the back. $6 million.
$5 billion. I was there for 35 years. It wasn't.
I don't.
It occurred overnight.
With all due respect, there's some people that walk into a business doing $6 million, stay for 35 years, and the business does $3.8 million at the end. You did a great job, an iconic all-time job. I think when people hear that staggering success, I think they sometimes don't realize that there were moments of real mistakes. Or I'm really genuinely curious, as you sit here today with all of us, when you look back, it's such an incredible accomplishment. But for fun, what were the one or two mistakes you made in that iconic run that you like to think back on? And obviously you can smile about it now because the outcome was a win.
No, I don't even smile about it.
Still you don't. Still you don't. So good. Tell us about the stuff that still pisses you off.
Okay. In 2008,
Okay.
I authorized my creative partner to develop a namesake brand. It didn't start that way. It went that way, and I did it for the wrong reasons. The first reason was a very strong sense of loyalty, that he earned it, and an irrational belief that it would be hard, if not impossible, to find another partner that I could work as well with. And it was at a critical time in Coach's history, and I needed 110% from him. And it's understandable that his passion was his own brand.
Of course.
And I was not able to get his attention.
What else?
The business basically went sideways. I think our sales did grow because we were still expanding in China, expanding in Japan, but we did not really stay in touch with what consumers needed 3 years, 2 years ahead. And it actually took until 2020 when Todd Kahn became CEO and partnered with Stuart Vivas that Coach went back to our roots to interpret Coach in the 21st century, really focused heavily on Gen Z, and the business is doing remarkably well. And it's a great time to come out with a book, of course. Yeah. And I will say, if Todd doesn't mind me saying this, Todd said to me more than a year ago that if I wrote the book in 2019, I would have had to have my face on the cover.
Let me go into a couple of audience questions, and we'll bounce around here a little bit. What has been the most memorable, or I'd be more interested in the unexpected moments in your career?
There are so many.
I'm sure. We'd like you to pick one.
Well, unexpected, I might say, unexpected means something I did not anticipate. When we opened in Japan in 1988, and we had real clarity that we were targeting the young female college graduate who was looking to start a career rather than following her older sisters into marriagehood. And we also knew that she would not be able to afford the European luxury brands. When I remember standing on a corner with Peter Emerson, who ran our international business for many years. Just when we started, we waited for about 15 minutes before we saw a Coach bag. 10 years later, standing on that same corner, it was unexpected. I never thought about it, but every fifth bag was a Coach bag.
That's very cool.
So that was pretty cool.
Besides the general and mental health themes, what is the most important lesson you'd want to pass along to your kids?
Life has its ups and downs. No one is exempt from it. No family, no company, no organization. And you need to listen to your body, which I mentioned earlier. And you need to take care of yourself. And that's absolutely critical.
This is a good one. What are you most proud of, actually? Which is such a tough question, I'm sure. When I just read that, everyone's thinking, like, how do you really get there? But I think this is the setting for it. Deep down, what are you most proud of?
I'm very proud of being able to build a brand based on some principles that I believed in, which was democratized luxury, and looking to build a brand that with good value that would represent the best of America, thinking that our team would be a microcosm of America, and I couldn't be prouder than where Coach is today and where it will travel tomorrow. Simultaneously, I'm very proud of my family, and I wrote the book in part. We have a lot of audiences. One, of course, was to share with my grandchildren and for them, their children, what it means to have purpose and belief in your life. And the second audience, of course, is Coach fans, and the third audience is business students, and a fourth audience would be people who might want to read an interesting story about an American brand.
You know, your level of passion, your belief in passion, your belief in principles brings me to an interesting question. I'm very curious to see what the answer is. In your lifetime, call it your professional lifetime, when you started serving this great city, and then obviously all these years in business with Coach and other great investments that you and your family have made, what do you think the thing is that you've most changed your mind on? What were you most passionate and principled in your early years that life has taught you that it might be different, and now you actually are convicted in the other direction?
I don't think my basic values are my basic values, and they were my values in the 60s. I really believe that we need immigration, that I'm disturbed by a lot of things going on, as you might imagine, and I worry greatly for my children and their children and everyone's children. But my values are largely intact, meaning that I have not changed my views on anything significantly.
Give me something not significant.
Okay.
I think that's right, and that makes sense to me. What about management style or a business principle, something you really believed in that you have a different take on, or maybe you just believe the market, you know this for the Coach team, who I see many in the front rows that I know, the market changes, and the market changes, and the market changes. I find it likely that there's something that you believed in the way you managed the team in '84 that in 2004 you probably had a different view on, or maybe even since you've been out of the day-to-day, you're like, in hindsight, you've had a very good career investing in great companies. Maybe you see some things they've done that was in conflict to what you believed in, that you now believe might have some validity against it.
I will say that under the current leadership, they have done everything that I would like them to have done. It was the prior leadership that looked to take the brand up. In terms of small things, what I need to first say is that I really focus on today and tomorrow, so I'm always looking to try to anticipate things that are occurring in the future. Gen Z, they want spontaneity. They want to shop when they want to shop, in whatever the channel, agnostic. And you need to adapt. And I think being consumer-centric is critical. If we want to go high, I do believe the U.S. cannot be the world's policeman. I think that some of our attempts to improve other countries' lives were flawed. Their real intent was not what I thought it was.
Yep.
And I wish all of our government leaders were focused on the greater good of everyone, and not just part of the society.
What trends in retail currently excite you?
Experiential retail, and I will also say, this will be a nod to Coach, expressive luxury. You well know that Coach is opening coffee shops worldwide next to Coach stores, and it's so symbiotic because they're giving people a place to eat, a place to rest. It creates community, and if you look around in a coffee shop, a Coach coffee shop, and look at the bags the women are carrying, 4 out of 5 are carrying a Coach bag. It gives people a sense of pride, and that to me, while it's expressive luxury in the sense of, that to me is more about community. In terms of the product itself, it's focusing on values and culture, and that's balancing both. Young people are looking for authenticity. They shop high and low. They're interested in sustainability. And Coach is very focused on giving Gen Z products that they want. And there's nothing better than a Coach bag that can be an investment, a companion, all of that good stuff.
I want to ask you about influence, right? Where did you sit? You know, obviously, I think about the time when you started to run Coach, you know, Brooke Shields and Jordache, you know, those kind of things. Where do you sit, and has your opinion changed through the years on interacting with fame and celebrity? Obviously, today we live in an era of long-tail influencers.
Yes.
You know, where do you sit? What has been your point of view on that?
To be very clear, the digital age is transformative in and of itself. And at Coach, for example, David Duplantis, who ran our e-commerce business very early in the aughts, started to cultivate young influencers and brought them into office, into our showrooms. We cultivated people who could have influence on young people.
We're obviously in the backdrop now where AI is so in the conversation and everyone's trying to think through what it means in life, let alone business. You've had this incredible career. Before I get into that part of it, where did you sit as an executive on desktop computers in the 80s, the internet in 92, 93, 94, 95? Where were you fast? Where were you slow?
We
Social
were
media?
fast.
Always.
Yes. I mean, we introduced in 1997 e-commerce. We were the first brand that I'm aware of within our sector to do that. We were the first to do Coach stores, our first American brand. And if you're focused on consumers and you really focus on where they are today and where they're traveling, and you need to be there when they get there. And you know, when we opened Coach stores and catalog, I called it a multi-channel business. Today it's called an omni-channel. When we talked about being consumer-centric, today everyone is consumer-centric. So, but in terms of AI, it's revolutionary in a variety of ways. And again, on the business side, obviously, it's going to eliminate millions of jobs, for analytical jobs, repetitive jobs. It can't replace the interaction between, you won't have a robot in a Coach store telling someone in 4 years that you should buy this product.
Fear is a topic you talk a lot about in this book. What's your current relationship with fear?
I think everyone has fear, and some people don't admit it to themselves, but I think most people have fear and they acknowledge that they have fear, at least to themselves. My fear really came after I had the drive to achieve something. So once I felt purpose, I was scared that unless I worked really hard and practiced, I might fail. So, and fear always...
Ambition activated the fear?
It's less ambition and more purpose. So when I went to daycare, for example, it wasn't ambition, it was purpose. The city was in a fiscal crisis. Daycare was a hot subject. They talked about closing daycare and Head Start in the city in New York because it was scandalous, and I came in with purpose. And my purpose was to restore the program to provide service to eligible kids without kids losing service. And I built a team of like-minded people who were focused on the greater good, service. So that wasn't ambition. I mean, winning, if we consider winning ambition, I would say that I'm ambitious, but...
Do you consider yourself competitive?
In business, yes, very competitive.
What about in regular life?
Much less so. I never was a great athlete. I was always in the bottom quartile in any sport, so I knew I wasn't going to win there. And I try to stay away from certain types of people who think they know everything about every subject. I coined the term that I use, masters of the universe, and I try to stay away from them. And we can ask my family and friends if they think I'm competitive outside of work.
Now? We should ask them?
We can ask them now.
I'm kidding.
I will say I play speed chess every day. I'm sort of addicted to it. 5-minute games, I like to win.
And when you lose, I assume you're just super gracious, no big deal, you move on?
What's that?
I assume when you lose those chess matches, you're super gracious, no big deal, you just move on?
No, I mean, half the time, unfortunately, I'm multitasking and I'm not following it close enough.
Fair enough. This is a fun one. What are your go-to fashion brands today? You're looking very nice here today.
Well, I will start with Coach.
Of course.
I wear a lot of Brunello Cucinelli. I have Smedley shirts, Laura Piana jackets and sweaters, and some very good jean brands, not necessarily AG jeans. Mm-hmm. I wear products that do the job.
When you were building Coach, you were obviously looking at other brands, just to give some flowers, because I think positivity is nice. In the 80s and the 90s, early 2000s, do you remember any brand really catching your attention that did something very radically different? That you were just like, good job over there, maybe not even in your sector?
I can say that in the 80s, I was very taken with Nike because they redefined the shoe category, and where the shoe category at the time was, I'm going to say $10 billion, it grew to 30 within 10 years or 15 years.
It's crazy.
And really impressed with Phil Knight and what he did in the shoe industry. That was one brand. That's it.
Good, because nobody else is getting a flower. As we're getting towards the end of this incredible night, is there anything that we had not touched on about the book or anything else you'd like to speak on that you'd like the audience to be aware of or be inspired by or give some thoughts to?
I talk a lot about life's journey, and I do believe we have to look at possibilities and be open to them. I've learned to enjoy special moments. Sam Frankfort has been pushing me for 20 years to enjoy special moments, and the rest of my family has too. And I do think...
You were not good at smelling the roses?
I'm sorry?
You were not good at smelling the roses when there were accomplishments?
Well, I always focused on what I needed to do next, of course. But I do think leading life, though, focused on purpose and relationships is what it's about.
It's amazing. Lew, I want to thank you for this honor.
Thank you for being here.
I really do. I will look back at this night very fondly and can't wait to share the stories with my family of sharing this stage with you. I want to thank everybody for being here on a Sunday night. It is very important to me that all of you go buy books.
I will add, Gary has a very interesting book that recently came out that's available for sale as well.
Very sweet. But please do not buy that. That's already done quite well and made the New York Times bestselling list. Save your shekels to support this American icon. Let's hear it for Lew Frankfort.